The left has been out of control, but they have now moved on, not just to attacking ICE agents or going outside and protesting, harassing people. They are now storming churches inside of the state. So, the very interesting thing about this instance is that it was led by a former CNN news anchor, Don Lemon. We're going to walk through several pieces of the footage for people who have not seen it, but what are your initial impressions of the left feeling emboldened enough to walk into a place of worship, shut down the service, hold the pastor hostage as he attempts to lead his flock? Do you think they just assumed they were immune from everything else that had been allowed to go on under the auspices of a protest in Minnesota?
Yeah, it's a weird bit of amateur hour from left-wing criminals. Normally, we're used to you have to give, not to give Antifa, you never have to give Antifa anything, but they're usually a bit more sophisticated in how they approach being criminals. Antifa people show up in black bloc, masked, and they don't bring their phones, and they don't post proof of identity so that other people, investigators, could find them at the location, because they know what they're doing is stepping over the bounds of the law. What happened here is a group, I think, of BLM protesters primarily, who had no understanding that what they were doing was in violation of federal law. It obviously was, but they clearly didn't know that. And, the most bizarre thing, or I guess the most predictable thing rather, is that the leader of this is apparently a civil rights lawyer, and yet she's perfectly unaware that federal civil rights law prohibits this conduct in multiple different statutes. So I see this as the closest thing to January 6th that we've seen from the left, and in the sense of January 6th, in my view, had widespread criminal conduct, right? It was a bunch of people who were breaking federal law when they were running into the Capitol. And it's a bunch of people who didn't realize they were breaking federal law. And I think that's a big part of the reason why so many people were prosecuted so easily. I think that's what's going to happen here. I think that Harmeet Dillon and Pam Bondi are about to throw the book at these people. I think my bet, the most likely outcome is that every single one of these people faces charges under 18 USC 241, conspiracy against rights. Everybody who showed up and protested, Don Lemon included.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely critical, because, of course, the impulse here is going to be to avoid charging Don Lemon. Maybe you charge some of the other people, right? But you find some way to say, oh, he's a media figure, he's covering things, because you don't want the bad optics. You don't want the left getting to make him a martyr, say, oh, it's a journalist, he's just out there doing the job, and the Trump administration is throwing journalists in jail for doing their job. But it is very clear, and we'll show this evidence as we roll through the different pieces we've collected here. But it's very clear that Don Lemon knew exactly what he was doing, that he's one of the ringleaders of this thing, that it was endorsed by him and others in social media posts, in footage that is taken, in post-action interviews. He is woven into this action throughout. And so it's critical, I think, that the administration makes it clear that Don Lemon doesn't get some special ability to violate federal law because he happened to show up on CNN at some point. That simply cannot be allowed. So let's play the original footage. This is just what the protesters taped coming in, and then we'll talk about Lemon and these other clips separately. But this is the main protest as they enter the building. You can see them entering, screaming to interrupt the service, physically block the aisle.
Renee Good! Renee Good! Renee Good!
And it's not just the chanting here. This man is also going to go up and harass individual parishioners.
Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are your people? Why are you not at Wimbledon every day fighting for the humanity, standing for our people? Where are you? You drink your coffee, you got your jewelry, you have your nice clothes, but what do you do? What do you do to stand for your Somali and Latino communities? I'm not going to comment. You have no comment, exactly. Say your name! Say your name! Renee Good! Renee Good! We have a duty to win! We must love and support one another! Doing absolutely nothing nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers and
Once
sisters.
again, you can see him getting in
come
the
here to
face
a
of all
man
these people
wearing a
screaming.
suit
He
with
wants
a
to make
preacher.
sure that
Did
he's
Jesus
videoing
wear a suit?
himself. He
Did
wants
Jesus profit
it's
off the
the
words?
political
No.
pornography
Jesus would
of
die
watching
with it.
himself
Do not touch
get out
me.
here and
Touch me
harass
again
all
and
these
see what
evil white
happens.
Christian
Hey,
people.
You
as
are a fake
repeatedly, even though
Christian.
many
Why are
members
you
of
not
the white,
standing with your
that doesn't
Somali and
matter at
Latino
all.
communities? Why do I not see you out at Whipple every day protesting this attack on humanity?
All right, so we get the general idea. We don't have to play through all of that, but can we talk a little bit about the possible violations that are contained just in this? A lot of people have pointed to the FACE Act. This is an act that famously was used by the Biden administration to go after pro-life protesters, even in many cases where they didn't physically enter a building, but simply the idea that they'd be near an entrance, blocking an entrance is sufficient. How does this apply to churches? How can the Trump administration turn this kind of law around since it's already in place?
So the FACE Act is going to be really interesting, and sort of it's not clear which way it's going to go. And so part of the reason is that there really haven't been any FACE Act prosecutions until like literally this fall for people obstructing entrance to churches. Every single prior FACE Act prosecution has been for obstructing entrance to abortion clinics. So it's really, there's a lot of room for judges to interpret what do these words mean. And the logistics of physical obstruction are going to be different for a church than they are for an abortion clinic. If you think about any medical facility, there's usually just one entrance, one exit, and you can shut it down and you can physically stop people from entering and exiting much more easily. And that's really what the language in the FACE Act is kind of focused on, this physical obstruction language and the way it's been interpreted to being like, are you preventing ingress and egress out of the building? So I wouldn't say it's like an open and shut case on the FACE Act. I think there's ambiguity. There's a real question about, well, they're standing in the middle of the church, but people were clearly leaving. So were they obstructing ingress and egress? That's where there's questions like that. So, but what I will say is I think there's a slam dunk, and I didn't realize this until having actually done some more research. It's a conspiracy against rights. 18 U.S.C. 241, the Ku Klux Klan Act. That's why you saw Harmeet flag that this morning in her interview with Benny Johnson. That simply criminalizes any conspiracy to oppress people in the exercise of their constitutional rights. I don't know any other way to describe what you saw here. It was it was a group of people who conspired to shut down a church service and do so through intimidation. And something that I caught that I hadn't heard before, but in that video clip, the one thing that I heard that might actually open up more criminal statutes. That guy wasn't just talking. At one point, somebody tries to touch him, and he says, "Touch me again, and you'll see what happens." Intimidation, threat of force. I didn't see that before, so that opens up a couple other statutes, I think. But yeah, I think the Ku Klux Klan Act is actually the most likely way to get a slam dunk conviction on all these people. The FACE Act is viable, and I'm sure it'll be charged. I would just, if I were a lawyer advising these people as like a defense lawyer, I'd be like, you don't have to plead guilty because of the FACE Act. We have some arguments to make there, but the conspiracy against rights, we don't really have any arguments.
Hey guys, if you've been watching this show for a while, then you know that around here we encourage something that conservatives usually don't do. Winning. If you like what I'm doing here and you want to keep it going, then head over to Blaze TV. They have the behind-the-scenes content, exclusives, and documentaries that you're just not going to see anywhere else. So go to blazetv.com/Auron and subscribe today. The promo code is AURON, and you'll save $20 right now off the annual plan.